Good morning. Well, we're back to work here on this planter. Brock is here. I'm going to get him set up here in a minute, but I'm going to pull off a gauge wheel and an opener on this side of the planter. We'll measure them up and see how they compare to what we did yesterday, and then we'll get him going and started working on some of this stuff while I put together a parts list. Got that gauge wheel off. This opener, we're on the other side of the road, left-handed threads. So if you go the wrong way and you try too hard, eventually you'll strip the stud off. Don't ask me how I know that. Maybe 10 years ago when I didn't know they were left-handed threads, I tried too hard. All right, we need a tape measure. Looks about the same as the one on the other side. Almost 15 inches across there. 14 7/8-ish. So probably going to leave openers. We'll check them all, make sure everything's within the specs as far as the contact area on them and stuff, but I don't think they're going to get replaced. So I'm going to go get some coulters ordered and a few other little parts that I think we need. Brock is going to wash on these row units for a while here, and I showed him what else we need to do. We can take all them coulters off, and then we got to check the all these gauge wheels, make sure that we don't have any edges, kind of like this one, and that one's iffy but probably should be replaced. And we can check to make sure that they're at the right contact on the openers, and we got to check the contact area. Here, I'll just show you that right now. So on these Truvy openers here, they come together and then they kind of separate, right? So this area that they are touching, we need to be a certain distance, and so the way you measure that is take a business card, shove it in there until it sticks. Take another business card, go in the top. Come on, there. Push that in until it sticks. Measure the distance between them. In this case, it's about 1 3/4 inches. You want that to be between 1.5 and 2.5 inches. So this one is good. We're going to leave that alone, and we got to do that on all 32 rows. Okay, so I got most of the parts that we're going to need, or at least the parts that I know we're going to need, ordered. I got new no-till coulters coming, and then I got some kits to fix these gauge wheel frames here. So I didn't buy 32 of them, but I bought enough to do a few rows on the ends because the ones on the outside seem to be worse. We'll try them out, see if we like them, and if they work the way that they're supposed to. Then probably next year we'll do the rest of the rows, but we'll see on that. And I got some more graphite coming. So Brock is washing row units over here, and we're getting those all cleaned up now. I think I'm going to go through and start taking all those coulters off. Dang it. Good grief. This one will do it. Apparently this blade's on tighter than the other ones have been. Well, there's half of them. They don't take up very much room when you stack them all nice and neat together. I'll just got to do the back rank, but they're folded up. I can do the ones in the center for right now. Okay, there's the pile that I can get to for now. You can see there is a little bit of variation in the amount of wear. This one and this one were not quite worn as much, but all got some. The center's pretty well lined up there. So I pulled out the one new one that we have. Watch this. And there you can see how much has worn off of that edge, which is why we're replacing them. That's a lot. That is substantial. So I've got more new ones coming. And yeah, that was pretty easy. So when we put the new blades on here, obviously they will be bigger in diameter than the ones that we just took off, right? And what that will do is drop the bottom down a little bit. And like I said yesterday, we do not want that no-till coulter to be deeper than our Truvy openers. So what that means is we're most likely going to have to adjust this. There's this bolt here that clamps it onto those serrated jaws there, or whatever you want to call it, and we'll just loosen that up and pop the whole thing up. Put that one on top of here, and that'll raise it up. Should be enough. We'll double check it once we get a new blade on there, but that's what I think is going to end up happening. My mom came out here, asked me if I was trying to get diabetes. Do what you gotta do. All right, since yesterday the bank and the post office were closed, I'm gonna go make a trip and run some errands there. It's almost lunchtime. You good here for a while?
I'm good.
Okay, if you do anything interesting, stupid, or funny, make sure you film it, okay?
We'll try not to make that happen. Yeah, sure.
All right, I'll be back after lunch. All right, I am back from lunch and running my errands. I just got my last fertilizer quote that I was waiting on emailed to me, and so I've got all the numbers, basically all the numbers that I need to make some fertilizer decisions. This is not quite as simple as everybody sells the exact same thing and you just pick the cheapest one though. So let me show you. You're gonna watch me geek out a little bit here. This is gonna get a little bit technical, but this is the decision-making process and what I'm doing. And I know I'm going way more in-depth into reading into this, way more than I need to, but that's just my personality. That's how I do things. So I'm sure that my suppliers are getting quite frustrated with me for asking for minute details and little things on some of this stuff and being so specific, but in the grand scheme of things, we're never going to be as accurate as what I'm figuring, but you plan for the best case scenario, right? And do the best that you can. So here's the deal. I have 3 different suppliers that I've gotten some prices from. All of them sell something just a little bit different, or you know, their own blends, I guess we'll call it. So I told you the other day, for starter fertilizer, we use a couple of different products, and here's what we're trying to do. For starter fertilizer, I am trying to, one, give the plants as much nutrients as they need to get off to a good start, specifically the nutrients that are either tied up and unavailable in the soil when it's cold and wet, like we typically plant into, or nutrients that are leachable in the soil and don't typically stick around. So the 4 major nutrients that I'm concerned about are nitrogen, phosphorus, zinc, and boron, okay? The phosphorus, we have a fair amount of phosphorus in our soils. That's something we test for and we apply. It's not considered a leachable nutrient, but in cold conditions specifically, phosphorus can be pretty tied up in the soil and make it pretty difficult for the plants to get it. And so we like to apply it in a concentrated band right next to the seed in our 2x2, which should be technically 2 inches to the side of the seed and 2 inches below, so that when those roots start growing down, they grow right into that fertilizer band and can give them a good jump start. That's why we call it starter fertilizer. The other ones, nitrogen and zinc and boron, are leachable nutrients. So they will bind more to the water than to the soil particles. And as we get water running through our soil profile, a lot of times those nutrients will bind to the water and go
out of the field or too deep in the soil profile for the roots to get them. And so we apply them at rates that the plants can use as they need them, so that we're not wasting them because they're expensive, and we don't want to put them out there if we don't need them or when we don't need them. And we want to make sure that the plants have what they need. So let me show you what I am doing here. All right, so this is my starter calculation sheet. It's part of my bigger farm planning spreadsheet and stuff. And most of the numbers on here are, well, they're all relevant, but we don't need to worry about all of them. So up here at the top, I've kind of got listed my different products that we are going to use. So one of the things that we use is this 12-25-0 product, and it is about 12% nitrogen, 25% phosphorus, no potassium in it, 2% sulfur, and 0.1% zinc. And then I've got the cost. And then 1034O, this is kind of a standard base fertilizer that a lot of places sell, and it is 11.65 pounds per gallon, 10% nitrogen, 34% phosphorus, no other nutrients in it. And then one of the suppliers that I talked to, they sell this 10.5 32O product that has 2% sulfur and 0.5% zinc. Then over here we've got this ATS. ATS is 12% nitrogen, 26% sulfur. This 10.5 32O is basically a blend of 1034O, ATS, and a zinc product. The zinc is 16% nitrogen and 20% zinc. Okay, so I can buy this pre-blended for whatever the cost is. I don't know if that's the right number or not. Or I can buy the individual components and blend it myself. But in order to do so, I need to know what the ratios are. Well, I know what the final analysis is, so how did they blend that? What rates did they blend together to get to that? Well, this is where I do my math, and I love spreadsheets because I can figure that out. So down here, I listed those three products, the 1034O, the ATS, and the 20% zinc product. I know their densities because I looked them up, 11.65, 11.01, and 11.27. That's pounds per gallon. So if I know that this one is 10% nitrogen, 34% phosphorus, I can multiply out 10% times the density to figure out that there is 1.165 pounds of nitrogen per gallon of 1034O. Likewise, there is 1.3212 pounds of nitrogen per gallon of ATS and 1.8 in the zinc. Okay, pretty straightforward. That's easy to figure. And then we can do that for the phosphorus. Potassium is easy because there isn't any in any of it. Sulfur and zinc. All right, so that's good. Now, if I want to end up with a final analysis of 10.5, 32O205, how much of each of those do I need to blend together to get there? Well, I got pretty darn close here. 10.3, 30.75, 1.85, and 0.49. My guess, this is the blend that they're using, and they're rounding the numbers off. So, if that's the case, then the numbers, where did I do that? Right here in my formula, you can see what percent of each of those there are. So it's 9/10 or 90% of the 1034O, 7.5% of the ATS, and 2.5% of the zinc is what I blended to get 10.3, 30.75, and 1.85. Now those may be off just a touch. This one's a little bit low. This one's a touch low, but they're going to round up basically every time anyway. And so we're going to go with that. I also then can calculate out what our density of that product should be. It's basically 11.6 pounds per gallon. So I refined this a little bit more, made it a little bit easier to adjust my numbers and stuff, but ignore that for now. We're going to go back over here and focus on this side. And this is a busy chart, but basically what I have here is the products, the different things that we can put in our starter. So in this case, 1034, we basically have three different base products that I'm choosing between. It's either this 1225O, 2% sulfur, 0.1% zinc, straight 1034O or the 1034 ATS pre-blend stuff with a little bit of zinc in it. And so I've made up a box for each of those. This one is the straight 1034O, and then if I did that, I would put some ATS in, ammonium thiosulfate for the sulfur. I would add in a little bit of zinc, and I would add in a little bit of boron. So I've got boxes for each of those. This calculates out how many gallons per acre of each, and then what percent of that blend each of those would be. And then from there down, I kind of have different rates because I do variable rate with my starter, which means in some areas of the field, I put less on, some areas I put more on. Basically, I want to focus on this middle box for right now. So this would be in a yield environment where we're expecting 150 to 180 bushel corn. That's kind of our mid-range standard. So in that environment, we would put on a total of 13 gallons per acre. There would be 15.8 pounds of nitrogen in that starter. I would then apply 165 pounds of nitrogen with my anhydrous for a total of 180. We would get 29.7 pounds of phosphorus, P2O5, from our starter, 14.3 pounds of sulfur, just over a half a pound of zinc, and about 3/10 or just under 3/10 of a pound of boron. That cost would be $32 an acre for the starter plus $48 for the anhydrous. So then those rates kind of drop off more or less based on the rates, but the focus is on the center box for right now and whether or not those numbers are sufficient. So I come over here to my iPad and there's an app that I have that tells me how much nutrients we are removing with different yield of our corn. So I'll put in 180. We're on the high end of that zone that we're working with. And nitrogen, it says we're going to need about 201 pounds of total nitrogen because you can see what you're removing with just the grain. This is what column would be what's in the stover or the stalk and the roots and everything else. But in order to grow the crop, you got to have the total amount. So 201, well, we'd be applying about 180 right there, but you can figure you're going to get some from the organic matter in your soil. So that's reasonable. P2O5, 90 pounds. Well, we're not putting anywhere close to that on, but remember, most of our phosphate and phosphorus is already in the soil from the fall broadcast fertilizer and other sources. So we're just putting enough on to get the plants going there. We're not worried about that. Sulfur, however, is one of those leachable nutrients. Would require 27 pounds. Now that's almost double the 14 pounds that we're going to get from our starter. So is that enough sulfur in our starter? Maybe. I don't know. And then we'll go down here and look at zinc, 0.46, and boron, 0.48. So we've got enough zinc in that blend. Plenty of zinc, actually. We probably could back that off just a little bit. We don't really have quite enough boron, but boron can be very toxic to the seed, so we don't want to overdo it that close to the seed trench. So maybe we'll put half of it on with our starter, and then maybe when we're spraying some herbicides or fungicides on, we can come in with another shot of boron later in the season. So that's a reasonable blend. It's maybe a little light on the sulfur, but I don't mind that too much. So then I've got that box. I've got another one here. This would be if we use the 1225O product. It's already got zinc in it. So I didn't put any additional in, but it doesn't give you very much zinc. So maybe we do need to add a little bit more and change the rates on all those. Now this one would be 15 gallons total. And you can, by doing this, I can compare. Here's that 10.5 32O pre-blended stuff and how much would be in those. And so by doing this, I can compare not only how much of each individual nutrient each starter blend would get, I can tweak those blends to get more or less of an individual nutrient, and then I can compare the costs. And surprisingly, they're not that much different, right? So like up here, we're at $32.72 per acre, $33.10 per acre, $33.10 per acre. Those two worked out identical in cost. So, and that's with some of the pre-blended stuff. Now this one I may tweak because of the zinc. But then this one here would be doing the work myself, more or less. And we'd save just a little bit of money there. The other thing you got to consider, though, is the nitrogen, because if I get less nitrogen in this blend, where I'm only at 15.8 pounds compared to, 19.7, that's not a big difference. So maybe that's not as big of a deal. But if I was significantly less nitrogen up here, 10 pounds to the acre or something, I would put more in the anhydrous, and so that would mean that my anhydrous cost would be higher. So you really got to look at the total cost there, not just the starter or the anhydrous. So that's the decision-making process. I know this was probably boring and very in-depth, but yeah, I enjoy this. This is fun for me. All right, now that I've spent some time doing this, I did call my dad just to consult with him and make sure that the numbers that I'm looking at, and 27 pounds of phosphorus per acre is enough, and 15 pounds of sulfur, and what he thought, and I tweaked a few numbers in here, made sure everything was right, and it looks like my bottom chart there, the one with the 10.5, 32.0, 2% sulfur, 0.5% zinc product, is actually going to be our cheapest. It's going to be easiest to use, and so I think that's what we're going to end up with. Cost is just over $30 an acre for that, and I think I've got to just figure out exactly how much we need and get that stuff ordered now. So that job is pretty well done. All right, enough computer work for the day. I've had enough of that. Brock has got all our row units all cleaned up, so that is good. The next thing we need to do, Brock, over here, we need to pull out these seed tubes and clean them up, and that'll let all the dirt that's stuck down in there fall out. So, come here, I'll teach you. Put your drink down. Put your phone down.
It's going to go off.
Why is it going off? All right. So, you got to pinch these two tabs together right here, and put your other finger here and pull that forward. I can't do it with one hand. Pinch, pull, pull, pull. Come on. There you go. Now work that until it pulls up. Might have to keep them pinched. There you go. Okay, pull that out. Now we're going to unplug it. Okay, now that can be washed. Most of the dirt fell out from in there. So we have these fancy, dirty, this one's in pretty rough shape, seed tube brushes, but they are designed to scrub the inside of that out. So we'll use some warm soapy water and clean them all up good. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put these blades that I took off back on. I got a couple of comments and questions on yesterday's video about if I can simply switch these ones that are a little bit worn behind the tires with the ones over there that aren't. And while I could, that can cause some other problems, and so I've decided against it, mostly because given where they are, I know that these ones are a little bit more worn, and I can compensate for that with my depth adjustment and maybe run this row a notch deeper than what I do on the other ones and the rest of it. So if I start moving them around, then I don't remember exactly where the worn ones are, and it makes that a little bit more difficult. So we're going to leave them there and just make sure everything's adjusted as good as we can get it adjusted for right now, and we can compensate by running these rows deeper behind the tires so that it compensates for the wear compared to everything else on the rest of the planter. So tomorrow we're going to go through and gap all of these and make sure that they're all adjusted properly. But while I'm putting these ones back together, I might as well do these now. So we'll show you how to do it now, and I'll probably show you again tomorrow. But basically these blades fit on here. There's these shim washers, and we're going to put this on. Once we tighten it up, if there's not enough of a contact area on here like I've been talking about, then we take one of those shims out and try that, and that's how you can change how much area is contacted. So we're going to spin it on there and torque it, because these are kind of critical, so I want to make sure they're right. So I got my torque wrench. It's 90 foot-pounds. And come on. 90. All right. Now they should be touching. Indeed they are. I'll grab my business cards. Come over here. Inch and 7/8. That one's good. So our openers are where that we want them. I'll put my cap on. And now we can put our gauge wheel back on. Can you guys see that? Yeah. Last one of these I dropped on my foot, so I'm going to try and avoid that. There we go. Spin this bolt in. This one gets 125 foot-pounds. Okay, now this gauge wheel, we want it to be sort of tight. That's about perfect, actually. Oh, show you. So it's rubbing that opener. When I pick it up, it kind of sort of stays, but it does fall back down. The openers turn with it. That's good. We could adjust this nut here to put a little more tension on it if we needed to, but we don't. That's kind of the beauty of this gauge wheel mount system, this RK Products kit, is once you've got it set, it really doesn't change. So you should be able to just put it back together and not have to worry about adjusting it every time. It should just go back to where it needs to be, which it did. So I've got those 3 that I had taken off, put back on. Like I said, tomorrow I'm going to go through and check all of those openers, check all of the gauge wheels. We'll look for ones like this one that are all chewed up here and needs to come off and get a new rubber tire put on there. Maybe we'll work on that. That's a little bit of a process. I think I've got 1 or 2 of those that we can put new ones on, and I'll get some more if we need to. So we'll work on that stuff. Other stuff that needs to be done yet to the planter, we need to take all these chains off, spray them down, clean them up, make sure they're in good shape yet, and lube them up before we put them back on. So probably won't get to that tomorrow, and we still gotta clean and do all the ones that are up yet, but it's just easier to do the front ones and then do the back ones. So getting them.
Yep.
Basically, we're just trying to get the dirt off the outside of those using that brush to scrub the insides. The seed treatment kind of builds up in there from all the seeds falling through it and stuff, so we're just trying to clean them up because there's a electronic eye here that senses the seed, and we need it to be clean so that it's can count them, which is kind of a hard thing to do because I figured it out. There's like 33 seeds per second falling past that sensor, and it can count them. All right, well, we've got a plan for tomorrow. I know I didn't spend as much time in the shop here today as I was probably hoping to. Like I said, I procrastinate and try and avoid these projects. But we did Brock got all them row units cleaned up. We got some stuff put together, and I got the parts ordered that we need. Those will be here tomorrow. Getting those no-till colders off was a good deal, although it didn't really take me that long. So if we can get all the row units, openers, and gauge wheels adjusted tomorrow, and my parts will be here, so we can start working on some of this other stuff. We're making progress here. It's just I'm not in a hurry. So anyway, Brock will be back tomorrow in the morning for a while, and he can help with some of that stuff. We'll keep moving here. All right, guys, I'm going home. We'll see you tomorrow. Like, subscribe, questions, comments down below. Thanks, everybody.